like I said, it's not polite company to talk about Trump, but everyone would vote for him, sort of thing. Like it's a very strange world we live in.
So what'd you think? What's the feeling there with you and like other folks in Australia? Like pretty glum, or what are you thinking?
Uh, well, the undercurrent here in Australia is sort of weird. It happened in 2016 too, where it's sort of like it's sort of like a sort of ambivalence about the US election, but also like there is an undercurrent here of like conservative thought that sort of really kept on simmer. So people are like, they don't care if you wear a Trump hat down here, but they're also like, it's not polite talk to
Hmm.
talk about Donald Trump, if that makes sense.
No, I absolutely. I think that it's similar in a lot of places around here. So, for example, I live in Pennsylvania, so there's two big cities basically in Pennsylvania. I have a lot of friends that live in Pittsburgh. It's about 2 hours away from me, and
Yep.
a lot of them they're not hardcore lefties, the group I'm talking about here. Some of them voted against Trump, some voted for, and the ones that voted for, a lot of them are like privately messaging me like, look, we are at our jobs, and it's like, that half the people there probably voted for Trump, but no one can speak up. It's just this
Yeah.
undercurrent, and the people that voted against Trump are devastated and they're speaking up, but the people that voted for him are all just quiet like, okay. And it is weird how that works. I think it has to do with sort of where our culture has been. And I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but here in the States, where culturally we were always told, like growing up, I was always told, like, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion, like at the dinner table, right? But that's sort of changed.
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about it if you're on the culturally dominant side. And so culturally, it was perfectly fine to be like, Trump sucks, he's the worst, he's Hitler. And so if you weren't of that belief, you kind of had to bite your tongue. Now I think that you're seeing it more people saying, no, we don't have to put up with this anymore. Hopefully, the result of this will be after a little pushback, we go back to sort of having polite disagreements and people not treating you like you're some, evil maniac. And every HR meeting you have has to be, oh my God, we need to hug each other because Trump won or something like that. But definitely have a similar vibe here, what I've seen, at least in our cities. So.
I think that's just about everywhere, but it's so strange in Australia because it, we're so politically because the two part we sort of have like we're basically two parties down here as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have different parties, but they form coalition governments and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but both parties are pretty much on the left. We have Labor and Liberal. Liberal is sort of the conservative, but not really. They're more left of your conservatives. I mean, way left now of your conservatives. Way left of Trump. But I reckon down here, if you polled, or if well, let me put it this way: if Australia became a state of America tomorrow, they would be deep red completely, with the only holdouts being the major cities, just like in the
Yeah.
US elections.
Yeah, it's so strange that I mean, strange isn't the right word. You understand why it occurs, but you wonder how a society could keep on like that, where it's like even if you see the maps here, and I'm sure
Mhm.
you've seen it, where the country is just incredibly red, and then you could just look at a map of how places voted, counties voted, and you're able to be like city,
Oh, yeah.
city, 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 like you absolutely know, and it's like to have that sort of bifurcation between a country, and you're saying it's similar in Australia. You wonder, like, in the
Yeah.
long run, how it's possible to continue to coexist like that.
Well, it's just complete like political repression. Um, like I said, it's not polite company to talk about Trump, but everyone would vote for him, sort of thing. Like it's a very strange world we live in. Um,
And I
yeah,
think
I don't know.
I think people like one of the things that people don't understand about Trump is it's not really about Trump. I think he represents a frustration, and I think it's a frustration you see around the world. You saw it with things like Brexit. You see sort of right wing uh, populist movements spreading up in countries like France, Germany, etc. There is a deep seated frustration with leadership in both culture and politics around the world. And because that leadership has been in tandem, the culture and politics all going the same way with the people in control, there's not been a good vent for the people that are frustrated. And by that, I mean, there really hasn't been an avenue for them to voice their frustrations. And so I think what's happened is there's been this bubbling undercurrent where maybe people are silent. You know, the pollsters talk about it here, the people trying to do polls. How do you get the Trump voter? Because so many of them, when you call them, they're like, I don't want to talk to you. And that's sort of the lesson we've learned. You can't talk about it publicly, but privately, so many people are like, yeah, I'm tired of this. And it's not that like, oh, I love Trump necessarily, though there is a lot of that. It's, I'm tired of these people in control that have every advantage that I can't criticize publicly, right? Because they also are so involved in our culture, and it's deemed it's racist if you criticize them, or you know, you're a bigoted or you're uneducated. And yeah, I think that Trump signifies something, and Brexit as well in 2016, that scared a lot of these leaders around the world. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's true of the leadership in Australia, where they started to see like, uh-oh, this undercurrent's real, and we have to do something about it. And sadly, it seems like instead of something being like, let's listen to these people and see what we could do to help make their lives better, I think the answer's been, how can we shut these people up? You know, how can we use social media to censor them? How can we, you know, and for me, that's just exacerbated the problem. And that's how you end up with Trump 2024.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. Just looking at your chat, Kinks, completely right. We don't talk about politics in Australia. We know more about American policies. Like I could, you know, I watched all your 24-hour stream. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you would never catch me watching anything down here about politics. It's just sort of, yeah, it's complete repression. There's pretty much no hope.
You know, it's that, and here's the thing: as someone who's a populist first and foremost, right? To me, I've talked about this a lot. I feel that what's occurring is, for both nefarious and not as nefarious reason, they're trying to usher in the leadership of these places around the world, sort of globalization, and it makes sense. Even if you look at it in the most baseline way that's not like super nefarious, let's say you're Bill Gates. You don't want to have to deal with 100 different countries with 100 different laws, and you know, you're greasing wheels of politicians in 100 different ways. You'd rather just have one sort of international body, and that's what's going to have the rules. And then it's easy for you to gain influence in that one body, and as a major corporate leader, you could do whatever you want. I think there's a lot of corporate sentiment like that, and then various other reasons, some more conspiratorial than others. So for me, that's what they want. They want to erode national boundaries, and they want to erode national identity and have more of this world citizen view, which I think is a huge mistake. And for me, I think they've been largely successful, except the big holdout is certain areas in the first world, particularly the United States, and people that are working class. And so for me, that's why so many of these policies make sense. Why do you want open borders? Why did you want to lock down small business owners during the pandemic, but you allowed the big box stores to keep going? All of these things, you know, it's like, oh, and then you could go even to a deeper level. You look at someone like Mike Benz that's talking specifically about the U.S. State Department and how they're pushing for censorship online, because the intel agencies in the United States used to use a free and open internet as one of their best tools to sort of have revolutions in countries they didn't like around the world. But then they found out, whoops, it turns out an open internet could lead to populism in our country, and they didn't like it. So you have all of this push going, and I have friends in the UK, you know, the aforementioned person I know in Australia that's told me things similar to you. I do think that there are people around the world that are fed up with sort of that sort of stuff, these elites, and they can't really say much in their own country. And so there's a lot of looking towards the United States like, what's going to happen? It's almost the last domino that needs to fall. And the flip side of that is, if you could have an administration that successfully fights back against that sort of globalist mindset, maybe it starts to turn the tide in other countries like Canada, the UK, Australia. Now, I'm sure it's a long, long way away from it, but the tide's got to start to turn somewhere if you want to have hope. So I hope that even though if it's difficult to have a movement like that in Australia right now, that it's something that the ball will eventually start rolling a little more, and there could start to be some incremental changes.
Yeah, well, they always, I mean, you've probably never heard this, but they always say that Australia is like 10 years behind the US. We're
Right.
basically a US state. So if it gets rolling at the time, I mean, when it happened in 2016, when Trump first came in, it didn't start the ball right. I mean, yeah, it's hard to explain, but it did shift a little bit. It was sort of like Australia's sort of like there was like our politics was like a still pool, and 2016 came along, and the pebble rolled down the hill and hit the still pool, and there were ripples, and suddenly people started looking at each other, sort of like, oh, the pool can move. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's very, it's sort of like it's almost like as I'm saying it, it's like I live in Afghanistan or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everyone's looking at each other and afraid but it really is like that.
Well, it's a good point.
I,
And like I think what's different this time is you could make the argument that 2016 was a flash in the pan, right? Like, okay, it was a unique moment in time. You had Trump win, you had Brexit. That's okay, we've dealt with all of that. And then you see a lot of the Brexit movement lose in UK. Trump loses, and sort of the momentum against those movements was a harsh rebuttal. Trump specifically, we're going to go after him, lawfare, 37 felonies, everything we could think of, we're going to charge this guy with. We're going to go after his supporters. We're going to lock up all these January 6 people. And it just became the narrative in the United States that, like, these people are horrible people. It was an insurrection. It was a coup. We're going to use every propaganda tool in the world to go after them. And they still won. And I think that the signal that sends, like, is it's not going anywhere. It wasn't a single flash in the pan. It wasn't, okay, you got your little movement for 4 years and now it's done. Now back to the way things are. I think that this time they used even more pressure to stop Trump from winning. And again, I can't stress this enough. It's not just Trump. I mean, for God's sakes, 2 assassination attempts. It's not just him. It's sort of what he represents. When you have people that are like sort of classically liberal, like RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, and then you have people like Elon Musk, who voted for Obama, Joe Rogan, who was a big Bernie guy. You have all these influential people that have sort of differing political beliefs, and they're all coming out saying, like, no, we need a movement like this. I think that hopefully can do more as a signal around the world than the first time, because you can't just write it off as, well, it's just one flash in the pan. It got defeated. Everything's done. So I'll give you the last word here, and then we're going to get some more callers, though I have really appreciated. By the way, you're not Jake Rattlesnake, are you? Who I
no, no. Actually, my name is Jake, but no, not.
Look at that. You could do the
not
now. This is probably bigoted on my part. Like it probably everyone that's listening from Australia right now is like, here we go. All us Australians sound the same, you know. But I just mean audio without seeing your face. You did sound a little like him.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, we all sound alike. Very racist. No, I just wanted to thank you, really, as a last word, I suppose. I really enjoyed that. Like, how I found you was through Destiny, obviously. But like all his videos get so much like airspace on YouTube. Like you can't click on anything politics without one of his things coming up. And then I found you, and I was like, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. But yeah, I just wanted it because I looked at all your election night. I had I had Tim Pool up. I had PPD mostly for Dave Smith. I had TYT. I really enjoyed TYT, but I had you, and then I ended up just turning all the others off because all those panels shit me so bad.
Yeah.
Like they hop everywhere, and you were the only one who was doing the house races. You were constantly, you knew as soon as states were called and all this, and I'm like, why am I watching these other panels? Like, I'm not getting any information. You know what I mean? Like, it sucks.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And, I was worried about the election night cover. It's one of the things that there's things like that. I don't mind. I jumped on with Andrew Wilson. I jumped on with John Burke for a little while, but I find it like the debate reviews. Oftentimes when I'm watching someone, I'm interested in like what's going on. So like, for example, a presidential debate, and you'll have these people that are streaming during it and they're talking over the debaters. And I'm like, but I kind of wanted to hear what Trump and Kamala had to say. I didn't really care at this moment what a third person had to say. I feel the same with election night coverage. In the past, like I remember in 2016, 2018, when I wasn't streaming, I would have frustrations like that as well. It was like, it's more interested in sort of people's commentary and sort of having a party in many cases as opposed to like I'm genuinely trying to figure out what's going on. So that's how I tried to carry the stream. I tried to not be a cheerleader and try to be as even-handed as possible, even though I know people knew it was obvious who I was cheering for. So I'm glad that at least one person saw value in it, and looking forward to doing it in every 2 years when we have these big elections. So
No, you did fantastic, and yeah, I know you're going to sing me off in a sec, but
no
but yeah, it's just the fact that like all these panels and also the debates, you do shit me up the wall. Destiny sucks. He sucks so bad.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that you're doing great things, and yeah, congratulations on the 10K.
Thank you.
And I'll definitely speak to you again.
Yeah.
And oh man, we could speak on Australia, because your thoughts on Australia is actually, yeah, I always thought that I've been listening to political commentators in the US for a long time. Just like I said before, or I quoted someone in chat or whatever. We know more about US politics down here than our own politics. It's a funny state of affairs, but you could definitely, if you ever want to come down here, you could easily, pretty much every political speaker, could easily transplant down here and just start talking, and you would be spot on about everything, because everything in the US, I think, is the same here. All our rural areas are red, or what you would consider red. All our cities are blue, and everyone pretty much speaks the same way. I think you'd feel right at home down here.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thanks again. We do call-in shows. I try every Friday, but I would love to have you on just someday, just to talk like as just a pre-planned guest about Australia. I think it would be interesting, because I think that there's a lot of stuff that people, one of the things here is we don't know anything. In my rural Pennsylvania here, we don't know anything about countries around the world. So it's always nice to get like sort of some information on how things are looking in important countries. So
Yeah, important. That's a Imaginarium just said I'm getting sent to the COVID camps.
yeah. Hey, but I saw they had nice flower pots and stuff there. I saw.
Yeah, we actually had COVID camps. We actually.
Yeah, I remember, and it was crazy. I remember arguing with this guy who claimed he was from Australia that told me that it was all bullshit. I'm like, I'm watching like whatever, like the equivalent of Good Morning America on Australia. I'm like, here's the clip right here where they're like, actually, these camps are beautiful. And I'm like, this is the most Orwellian bullshit I've ever seen. And it's like showing these people like locked in these rooms, like, and it was all like, well, you got to take the vaccine or you're put in the camp. But the camps are beautiful, and you can make friends there. That's sort of what this clip was. It was like, look, there's people that are playing music in the COVID camp. I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. Like,
I even doubt that music was being played. The things that I saw, like, because I could go on for hours. I need to let you next caller call in, but like they had the social distancing in the actual in the camps, so they could only talk. You could only go out onto your porch, and you could only talk from your porch. Like you couldn't even touch another person, or you know what I mean. Like it was.
That's unbelievable.
Anyway, yeah. Oh, dude. I'll come on. I'll talk about Australia. I'll talk about COVID. I am a liberal though. Like I started with that. I actually didn't get to the liberal stuff I wanted to talk about. Actually, can I get one? Can I just get one topic from you?
Sure.
Just one US related topic.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask you about, just wanted to talk to you about, so I saw this tweet, Harold Lutnick, Trump's transition team co-chair. This is a tweet, states that RFK Jr. is not getting a job for the Department of Health and Human Services. Lutnick also added that Elon Musk would help rather than take a formal role in the Trump White House. So what I just wanted to get you, and I'll leave with this. What's your opinion on you said that just earlier that if you said 50% of the things Trump says that he wants to do gets done, that's good. I agree. Mate, it's looking like his appointees are going to be garbage again.
Well, so
what's your opinion on that?
Yeah.
And I'll leave it with that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So to speak on this, I also saw pushback from other people inside Trump's camp that said that's not true, that this messaging wasn't true. I'll tell you straight up. If he screws RFK over, that's a huge black mark on him. And I will heavily criticize Trump. Now, I've criticized Trump many times in his first term. I will do so again. I think that strategically for politics, once you decide that there's a certain candidate or movement that you want to push, the way you go about it normally is during election season, You're willing to sort of go all in trying to help that side win. But as soon as they win, then you hold their feet to the fire. And I hope that Trump supporters learn that.
Yep.
He is someone who's not an ideologue, and right now he's someone who's gonna like, oh, I'm willing to listen to the people around me, blah blah blah. He's gonna have so many shitty people around him, and they're gonna be trying to convince him to fall back into the same traps of the 2016 era. So I think it would be a devastating mistake. Not just personally because I like RFK and think he would do great things with public health here, but also because it would signify that he is falling back into the exact same pieces of garbage. There, I said it. I didn't put an apostrophe like Biden, like they're trying to claim. Like these individuals that surrounded him, the Mike Pompeos, the John Boltons, etc. He cannot start listening to them. And so it would be a huge slap in the face to RFK, all the people that came out from RFK to support Trump, many of which may have helped him considerably, at least in the popular vote count and probably in some of these states where he narrowly won the state. So yeah, I would heavily criticize if RFK. Now the only caveat to that would be if for whatever reason RFK would be like, listen, I've decided to be in more of an advisory role. I didn't really want a position in the cabinet. Then I guess I'd be like, well, okay. I guess if RFK turned it down. But if he just straight up's like, hey, thanks for your help, RFK, now hit the bricks, I would think that would speak very ill of his character and ill of the fact that he has people around him that are not advising him in the best way. So,
yeah. Could I just ask you one? I swear to God, 1 second.
No, that's fine.
Would you, if RFK was forced out, and I think he's going to be, if RFK is going to be forced out by the people around Trump, his appointees and whatever, would you consider voting for RFK if he were a Democrat next time?
It would depend on what it would look like. But yes, I would. Right? I would anyways, whether he's forced out or not. And here would be the caveat. I really dislike a lot of his policies on energy and a lot of his policies on the Second Amendment, on guns. However, for me, as a single issue voter who's interested in going against corruption, for me, I'm willing to vote for someone who has more left-leaning policies than I like if I think that they sincerely are interested in fighting back against this institutional corruption. And I believe RFK is. So it would depend on who RFK is running against. If the presidential election would be RFK as a Democrat versus, say, J.D. Vance as a Republican, then I would, all things equal, I would go with Vance because his policies are going to be more aligned if I think they're both going to challenge sort of institutional corruption. But most Republicans, I would vote for RFK over. I would vote for RFK over Nikki Haley. I would vote for him over Jeb Bush. So it would depend on who he ran against. But certainly, if he gets kicked out, that would give me more impetus to say, listen, I guess it depends on how it looks. If RFK gets kicked out of Trump's administration, but then Trump does a great job of dismantling the FBI, I might say, I don't like that he screwed over RFK, but I'm not like rejecting MAGA or the MAGA movement totally over that one issue. So it would be very nuanced, but suffice it to say, I would be interested in possibly voting for RFK over most establishment Republican type people, and I would be very pissed off if he gets screwed over by the Trump administration here. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen. I think that my gut feeling tells me that if I don't know anything else, I know this, that Trump appreciates people that he sees as loyal to him. I think that he respects and is friends with RFK. And so I think that sort of stuff's usually more important to Trump than ideology. So I would be shocked if Trump completely burns that bridge with RFK. I think that it would be a big mistake, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But
yeah, can I? I'm going to throw a grenade in and I'm going to leave because I can see chat's angry at me. I don't trust Vivek. I think he's an empty suit. I don't like J.D. Vance for what he said about Trump. I don't think he's changed, and that's it.
We'll see. Again, we'll see. I could talk at great length about those stuff, but we'll see. At least they're saying the right things now, which I think we've been bereft of leadership for so long that actually says the right things. Then I'm gullible. I'm willing to accept someone saying the right thing as opposed to say like Nikki Haley. That's so. But hey, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Common Hope, for calling in. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon, man.
Definitely, man. Thank you so much.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy.